Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here. Welcome to my corner of the world. It's called Cyprus. It's in Europe. It's just outside the Middle East. Everyone comes here on holiday. It's beautiful. I wouldn't go back to the UK if you paid me. Well, unless you paid me a lot of money. So, in the left corner is Aquaman. On the right corner is the American box office, aka the American audience, who have been punished by Warner Brothers for failing the DCEU in the past by being one of the last audiences around the world to see Aquaman. That'll teach you, won't it? Maybe not. It's funny. I still go on Twitter and I still see these Marvel fans. Who was it? Spidey Gary, he was calling himself. Still going on about the Martha thing. Still going on about Aquaman. Trying to make Aquaman serious, a comedy character. Well, actually, if you actually bothered seeing the film Spidey Gary, you'd actually notice there's a great balance in Aquaman. And if I were you, I'd be more worried about the underwhelming box office Into the Spider-Verse has got. I'd be more concerned how mediocre Homecoming was and how even worse and how a big backlash is coming for Spider-Man Into the Past or whatever it is, right? Or Spider-Man Around the World or whatever the bloody sequel's called. I'd be worried about Spider-Man on the big screen right now. Actually, Into the Spider-Verse is awesome, right? Definitely better than Amazing Spider-Man 2, and better than Homecoming. But it wouldn't be that difficult to be better than Homecoming. And actually, Sony's Amazing Spider-Man movies were much better. In fact, all Sony's Spidey movies, including Spider-Man 3, are better than Homecoming. Remember when all those liars were saying, best Spidey movie ever about Homecoming? No. Biggest liar ever. Right, anyway, we're not here to talk about Spider-Man. I do love Spider-Man, by the way. But I'm sick and tired of these Marvel fans trying to put down the DCEU because you're intimidated by us. Man of Steel, brilliant. Let's get this straight. Batman v Superman, brilliant. Suicide Squad, a good, solid film. Wonder Woman, awesome, right? Justice League, 2 different directors, didn't work out. Hey hum, still has some great moments, we don't care. And now we have Aquaman, who potentially could make so much more money. And in fact, is beaten half the MCU movies in China. But the big test is coming. The big test. This will say a lot about the American audience. Are they haters? Are they lovers? Don't forget, the rest of the world is loving this movie. Warner Brothers are projecting that the opening in the States will be 60 million. But can it do more? I tell you what, Warner Brothers' scheduling of the release of this film around the world and letting the Americans wait is very interesting. But for me, it's a confirmation, a dangerous confirmation for me, that the American audience are too subservient to pundits and critics and Rotten Tomatoes. And that's why they don't trust you anymore. Because you haven't turned up. Man of Steel had a great box office and all that. But in America, it took ages to reach 200 million. Why? You let Superman down. Batman v Superman did okay. But again, the reaction to it was very disappointing. An over-the-top reaction. Suicide Squad was called a mess. But surprisingly, America, you actually backed Suicide Squad. And it nearly made 800 million globally. So well done for that. Then we got Wonder Woman. Great. Then we had Justice League. Now, considering all the problems, right, 650 is a break-even figure. Now, he didn't make a profit, but it certainly got his money back and paid all its costs back. It was a failed experiment. We move on from that now. Now, this film is massive around the world. This film is massive because people understand that Jason Momoa is an everyman. Jason Momoa is the Rocky Balboa of CBMs. He's an everyman. We identify with him, men and women. He is someone who doesn't think he's brilliant. He knows he's not the most gifted actor in the world. He understands, but he's fantastic. And what he's great at is being Jason Momoa, and that's enough. This is why he was taken on, and no one should be embarrassed about that. This is a character who in the comics is blonde, blue eyes, squeaky clean, very nerdy, very geeky, and hey, I would have loved to have seen that version, but this is a better version. This is brilliant. This is Jason Momoa and James Wan giving us something very, very different. and it's worked. It's worked because people all around the world are going, not once, but twice, but 3 times. The Asian audience loved it. The UK audience, I haven't heard anyone, right, come out and say they didn't like the film. I've seen a couple of negative posts. So what about the Rotten Tomatoes ratings? Around 70%. Not disastrous, not brilliant, but it's a fresh rating, which I actually think this is only the second DCEU film to get a fresh rating, a fresh certification. Now, either the DCEU films are as bad as everyone says they are, right? Well, not everyone, aka MCU fans and liars and agenda-driven critical media, or actually, there is an agenda here, and we have to look at that. I think there is an agenda, and I think what Warner Brothers have done, and I've said this many times before, and I'm sorry if I'm boring you, I can be boring sometimes, is what Warner Brothers have done by leaving America to be one of the last territories to watch it. Don't forget, America is where this film is funded and made, even though the film was shot all around the world, right? This is a massive rejection of American critical media, and this is a rejection of the American audience who are subservient to critics and bloggers and Rotten Tomatoes and other meters. They're saying to you, know what, we can't trust you anymore. So what we're going to do, we're going to reward the fans across the world. And by doing the special one-time prime screening, that's saying to the fans, come on, you can see it, it's all right, we love you. Yeah, get stuffed, you can wait. And that's the situation. It's a diss. It's a diss. It's saying, look, everyone around the world is loving it. Now you want to watch it, don't you? So basically, what Warner Brothers have done is so clever. And I hope, and I definitely expect this to happen with every, not just DCEU movie, but with the Joker movie, which is, again, a very exciting project and something extremely different. So things are happening for the DCEU now. You know, with Walter Hamada there now, there's not going to be the mistakes. There was too many cooks in the kitchen, right? What is it? What's the saying we say in the UK? Too many cooks spoil the broth. You had Jeff Johns, you had Zack Snyder, who was also running things as well. So, and now what it is, Walter Hamada is the cook in the kitchen. He's the only cook in. If he says he wants you to help with the creativity, you can come in. But basically, he is them, and nobody interferes with him because he was a big executive over at New Line Cinema, a subsidiary of Warner Brothers, and everyone trusted him. He's been allowed to come and say, right, guys, if you want me to do this, I can do this, but it has to be on my terms. And this is what he's doing, and these are the brilliant announcements he's making with announcing Blue Beetle and other smaller characters as well, solidifying the foundations of the DCEU. This is massive, and the success of this film. Now, whether this does 60 million, 40 million, 100 million, it's going to keep on doing so well across the world, it becomes irrelevant. It's what, as I keep on saying, what this release schedule has done has made the bloggers and the critics irrelevant, and they hate it. They scored Aquaman what they had to score it. They knew they couldn't get away with writing this film down. So what they did, they just gave it enough. And they knew exactly what kind of score it would get. It's a corrupt system. But we are getting to the point now where if you keep on releasing everywhere but America first, right, and you make the American audience kind of irrelevant and you kind of make them feel like a small pea, and then you start saying to them, you sure you want to keep on going on Rotten Tomatoes? Are you sure you want to listen to these critics and bloggers who have an agenda? Hey, if that's the way you want to treat us, we won't let you see the movie till the very last. It's, you know, it's brilliant because now the American audience are going, shit, everyone's loving it. I really want to see that movie now. So before it was all about Mary Poppins, the Return of Mary Poppins and Deadpool 2 and Into the Spider-Verse and Bumblebee. Remember when everyone was talking about Bumblebee? I don't think many people are talking about it now. It will make some money, right? But ultimately, it isn't going to have the gravitas of box office. Even if this film doesn't do well in America, you can't trust the American box office. We know the Disney bias in America. We know what's going on. But so anything can happen. It could be mediocre. It could be underwhelming. It could be fantastic. Now, what I expect this film to be closer to 100 million opening in the States rather than 60 million. But I could be wrong. but I just get a feeling. Now, if this works out for Warner Brothers, this will be massive. Because let me tell you something about this film. This was a handover film. This wasn't Walter Hamada's baby. He came in and he had to work with Zack Snyder, Deborah Snyder, Jeff Johns. He had to come in and sort this baby out as much as he could. But he had to respect the other people who were still running things. So it's difficult. So he came in the middle of the shooting of this film. And then little decisions were made to tighten this production up. And I believe if it wasn't for Walter Hamada, this film wouldn't be doing as well. It wouldn't be, So, listen, there's nothing wrong with Zack Snyder or Jeff Johns or Deborah Snyder. They're great people. But they don't have, the step back ability to be able to run a franchise. They're creatives. Jeff Johns is a creative. Zack Snyder and Deborah Snyder are creatives. They're not executive producers, in my mind. They're filmmakers. Even Deborah, who's, I'm sure she's got a great mind for a story and everything like that. But that's my point. Jeff Johns is now doing what he should be doing, developing Green Lantern Corps. I'm sure that's going to be an epic movie, and I can't wait for the buzz for that. So when we talk about Aquaman versus the American box office, it's quite simple, America. You have been shown the way by the rest of the world. Are you going to be lovers or are you going to be haters? I hope you'll be lovers, because once you see this film, you're going to fall in love.